Welcome to nCast, the podcast from nOps. Each week, we'll explore the world of cloud cost management, the latest in AWS optimization, and getting practical about your FinOps journey. Join us as we dive deep into the latest trends, tools, and best practices, while having conversations with leaders and luminaries who are innovating on the front lines. Our goal is to provide value to the community through insights and practical advice that will help you to achieve your FinOps goals. So whether you're in engineering, leadership, finance, or a cloud professional, this is the place for you. Sit back, relax, and get ready to join the conversation on nCast.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of nCast. This is an exciting one for us. We're coming right into KubeCon and getting ready for that. I'm very happy to be joined here by Josh Cypher, Senior DevOps over at Sonos, who's going to be joining me on a panel next week at KubeCon. So, hey, Josh, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, and I'm super excited for our panel. Got some great experts kind of in their own domains. We're going to talk about AI and the future of what that means for Kubernetes optimization. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, so for those of you that are going to be at KubeCon, our panel is going to be on Friday. It is the last day, but we've got a bunch of heavy hitters. So we've got folks from Square and Microsoft and Apple, and of course, Josh over here from Sonos. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation and really look at the state of the union in Kubernetes optimization, but more importantly, talk about not only the current impact of AI, but what are those inflection points where we'll be able to start to realize a lot of promise that this technology has. So we're super excited for it. Please think about adding it to your schedule. It's going to be at 11 a.m. in the Salt Palace, level 1, room 155B. We've got really good registration, so get in there before you get waitlisted for that one. But today, we've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, especially coming into KubeCon. I've had the good fortune to work and collaborate with Josh over the last year and a half, and watch him accomplish some great things over at Sonos. And so we're going to talk a little bit about his experiences. He's a major Karpenter adopter. He's built a program and led the organization to incredible results with spot adoption, high discounts and high availability all at once. That's sort of the golden standard. So we've been through a lot together, and we're going to get into it. So we all know that the Karpenter has achieved GA status, and it's really been disrupting the autoscaling game. The data that I have, and I just went back going into KubeCon to look across our customer base, which represents a pretty good swath of AWS Kubernetes users, just tells me that the adoption continues to accelerate. So you, Josh, you were early in on the Karpenter game, definitely before GA, and we all know the top line features. What I'm wondering is, what are some of the byproducts? What are some of the unexpected outcomes of adopting Karpenter for autoscaling in your Kubernetes management over at Sonos?
I mean, the biggest thing that's really stood out to me is how much more simple it is to manage infrastructure. Like before, we were managing these super complex node pools and configurations and having to really kind of try to predict the future of like what our capacity needs are going to be. And now it's like Karpenter's really standardized that with like a beautiful set of APIs and opinions that I find to be very beneficial and very easy for our team to look at and communicate around.
Yeah, I hear that over and over again, that it's flexibility in the management of your autoscaling groups, node placement, things like that. We know that there's a lot of built-in greatness with AWS APIs. So I know that you're kind of centralized in DevOps, and a lot of teams manage their own workloads. Did you have to build an enablement plan? How did the rollout go to the rest of the organization?
Well, for us, it was a bit of a two-step process. At Sonos, we've been using self-managed clusters built on top of kops since before EKS existed.
Sure.
And so, with that in mind, like we have this old platform that we're trying to move everybody into EKS so we can start to use Karpenter. And so, the first wave started long before Karpenter was even a thing, where we just tried to get people to adopt Kubernetes. And I'm sure a lot of people probably listening to this can sympathize with that process. But a nice thing is that everything was fresh in people's minds. They've been like, okay, we've migrated to Kubernetes, we've seen the benefits of it, and you're telling me that I can get something better. And so we kind of did a hand-in-hand partnership between teams to be like, hey, if you want your like every team has its own budget, every service has its own budget, its own SLAs, its own SLOs, and like once we were able to kind of experiment with Karpenter and show what we could do kind of in a clean room environment with it, it was an easy ask to say, hey, bring your service over into EKS and see if you can start to realize some of these gains and start to benefit from some of these optimizations. And so practically, some of that was engineers doing it themselves after just an internal sales pitch, as you might have it. Some of it we white gloved. We actually picked it up and worked with the teams and carried at least our portion of the code and configurations to get things deployed. And so I found that partnership to work out really well. There's a big focus in platform engineering to have self-service platforms. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you have to do that to scale realistically. But in these big moments when you're trying to migrate to a new tool or introduce a completely new concept, I think you have to be willing to kind of reach into the trenches with these cloud engineering teams and kind of pull that all together, because it's not always going to be easy for them to see the end result as clearly as you can, and it might be a harder ask if you're not willing to jump in there and do it with them, and that's what we ended up doing.
Right, and it really impacts to me how important it is to have tooling in place at that time where you can actually measure the efficacy of your program. I think that the engineering teams often struggle to prioritize. How do they do optimization? What do they focus on first? I know as an engineering leader, there's always a cost-benefit analysis because, I know my engineering team could accomplish anything given unlimited time and unlimited resources, but we also have to focus on innovation. So I wonder, do you think that unit economics or that level of visibility really played into the ability to sell that?
I think it was definitely a consideration. Like, I don't know if that was the biggest, most glowing part of it, but there was definitely some writing on the wall there that I think people could read, and it very much helped in especially our more highly scalable, broadly used services. Like it just became kind of a no-brainer when looking at the numbers.
Well, and looking at the adoption numbers, I think that's increasingly becoming the case. It is just kind of a no-brainer, and it for more and more organizations, it's not a question of if, but when did they make the move? Mm-hmm. So I guess we talked about it. Karpenter's finally in GA. We've been really a proponent of Karpenter as a technology since early in the alpha days. And we all know what the big messaging is around Karpenter features, but it seems like as we've come into GA that there's been a lot of smaller incremental wins, really cool features that make both management easier and outcomes easier in terms of results. What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, let's see. So disruption controls by reason, I think that's a big one. Allowing users to specify disruption budgets, such as like underutilization, emptiness, or drift. It gives you like precise control over node termination processes, which means critical workloads remain unaffected during scaling operations. Like, you say that now, like post Karpenter, and you're like, yeah, that's how it should be. But like we forget that just a few short months ago, like that was a lot more complicated. So disruption controls, very awesome. I also really into the consolidation policies. Usually that was only available to completely empty nodes, but now we can consolidate after, or consolidate when underutilized, or consolidate while empty. And I think that's really helpful in maintaining capacity during transient workload spikes. It's just it's just a super cool feature. And then probably my third favorite, and then we can maybe elaborate on some other stuff you want to unpack some more, is a termination grace period. And it sounds so simple, but like from a security standpoint, and compliance standpoint, just knowing you can set a termination grace period and the node has a maximum lifetime and I don't have to worry about it and it's going to be shut down gracefully, like such a great thing. There's no more getting yelled at by security or knowing that you're paying way too much for a security scanning tool to tell you this. It's just a matter of setting a grace period and never thinking about it again, which is awesome.
Right. And, I think that when you said that we take this stuff for granted today, just a few short months or a few short years ago, a lot of these things were required building custom scripts, custom tools, doing a lot of manual exercises. Over at nOps, one of our biggest considerations in everything that we do is empowering engineers to actually focus on the work that drives value to their organizations. I often get into conversations with engineers and engineering leaders where there's a shift in thinking around the conventional wisdom of even infrastructure as code. Yes, we have to have strong configuration management. Yes, we have to have reproducible results, but there are some things better left to automation, right? And so a big part of that can be convincing engineers that the technology is strong enough and that it's not going to impact operational efficiency. But at the end of the day, these long planning, capacity planning exercises, reconfiguration, analyzing node types and reanalyzing your architecture for the latest and greatest from Amazon. All of those things, I think the Kubernetes feature set and its intersection with Karpenter and your ability to really be able to dissolve things down to architectural requirements and forget all about the 700 or 800 permutations of instances across the Amazon landscape really means that we don't have to become an expert in every press release or announcement or architectural rev from Amazon. So has any of that impacted your organization? I think what early days, so some of the first conversations you have is, why did you select or invest so heavily in a specific instance architecture, right?
Yeah. What's been really nice is it's, you kind of hinted at this before in like trying to enable engineers, is like, it's taken a lot of those debates and discussions just off the table. It's not really like, it's so simple to just select a swath of instances and say like, you know what, these are going to work, and Karpenter is going to do its magic and select instances for me based on actual pod usage. So now we don't have to worry about and debate and about bringing in and scaling in entire node groups of specific instances and architectures. And it's freed up a lot of time to actually work on building our platform, as opposed to just kind of tweaking this machine over and over and over again, cluster by cluster, until we get it right. And so I think it's it's just freed us up to use a higher leverage point to do our best work, which I think is awesome.
Well, speaking of best work, you're big adopters of Spot over there at Sonos. I think that should be a point of pride because, well, for many reasons, not the least of which is the environmental considerations of using this available capacity that we have sitting in data centers effectively. But, a lot of organizations don't start there, right? In a greenfield world, conventional wisdom, I'm using conventional wisdom a lot today, has always said that we start from the lowest increment possible and work our way up. We right-size containers, and then we come up with a bin packing strategy, and then we select or intelligently select instance sizing and get our infrastructure right-sized. And then we start thinking about like commitments and pricing plans. I think what we've learned is that we have to be impact-based. We're migrating workloads that exist. And a lot of times that the flexibility of Spot capacity allows us to sort of short circuit to optimization without long-term commitments. It's like the dream state. I get a discount and I don't have to pre-commit to yesterday's technology. How is this program so successful for y'all?
Well, I think one place we do well is that we have a lot of these ephemeral applications to begin with. So like we don't have a lot of long run. I mean, on one side of the house, we do have some longer running workloads for ML and for our voice product that we offer. But for the most part, for our web services, it's like everything is very easy to spin up and tear down. And so the disruption of Spot isn't that big of a deal as it might be in other places. And then you combine that with some secret sauce from, nOps and or other providers that offer something similar. It's like you get a little bit more predictability out of your Spot disruption. And so you're not just dealing with a few seconds or a couple minutes. It's like you're getting a little bit more time. And so couldn't not plug in ops here because it's a great feature that you guys have, like giving a little bit more predictability, and it kind of speaks to the extensibility of Karpenter. But like Spot adoption and overall for us has just been an amazing way to free up. I mean, we're talking like 30, 40, 50% savings at times. And like, that is incredible. Like that is so incredible. You're able to toss it a whole slew of instances to select from. It's like you're not just trying to grab like some C6 8XLs and hope that nobody runs out, even though it's like a super common, instance class for family, or at least it was at some point. I don't know. I've been doing AWS for a long time. So I've really, we found it just very beneficial to know that we can grab a giant node that we're getting on sale at a steep discount and watch it get completely utilized. It's just a beautiful thing. Let's see what else.
What's sort of fear factor there? I mean,
definitely.
The number one thing is that you go and try and sell that to an engineering team, and their first answer is no.
Oh yeah.
And I workload, right?
It's still a contention point. Like, it reminds me of Space Jam, like when they do the alley-oop and they say foul. It's just like it's like, well, no, it's a yes, but no. It definitely becomes more of a human problem then, and less of a technology problem, which I think is okay. I want my cloud engineering teams to push back at me on things like this. I want to be able to come back to them with examples and data. And that's why I think it's important. And so another thing that's been great about Spot is that we've been able to do incremental integration. We don't have to overhaul the entire infrastructure all at once. We like gradually incorporated Spot instances first in our own management cluster that runs like all of our GitHub actions and Argo deployments to other clusters. It's like, as a DevOps team, we decided we're going to dog food this. We're going to start doing it with our own things. Granted, everything there that runs in that cluster for the most part doesn't need to be stateful. most of the time.
Right.
But that being said, like I thought it was a great thing for us to dog food it as a DevOps organization and start there. And then we started introducing it into lower environments. And we say like, hey, like this, like we have some pretty heavily used test environments at Sonos because we have a slew of products and firmware and a lot of configurations. And so we're able to kind of promote this through multiple different environments and proof it out there. One thing that we maintain is a staging environment that we call perf. And our perf environment is a mirror. It is a staging environment. It's a mirror of our production environment, but we're able to perf test everything. And that was an awesome tool for us to have at our disposal because we were able to just be like, all right, let's put this on spot instances and toss it 150,000 requests a second or more and see what happens. Right. And watch it scale and watch it do its work and start to fine tune things. And so one thing I would recommend any organization trying to move into Spot is like find a way to do some sort of load generation and do some sort of testing, even if it's just on a simple test service that you've created or just a little Flask API that you containerized and deployed, like something simple, like build that machine, spend a little bit of time doing that, like, sign up for a trial of BlazeMeter, like, I don't know, or use K6 by Grafana Labs. It's a great tool out there. And perf test it, like hit it with some real traffic and some real numbers and watch it for yourself, tweak it around and do it in a clean environment, get the data, pull the telemetry on it, and then start to share that around. And that's what I think made it successful. We started with ourselves. We went through a perf environment. We checked it against infrastructure that was somewhat identical to prod, and then eventually just started flipping the switch. That was a little scary. But coming back to your point, though, it was kind of just like, all right, we're doing this, aren't we? But, at this point, we had months of, because we didn't do this like in a few days. We did this over a couple of months. Slow and steady is usually the way we go. But we'd rather be right than wrong.
Well, and you're acting on behalf of the business. I think in leadership, in engineering, there's a constant balance between wanting to do things perfectly and really measuring the needs of the business and turning those into meaningful KPIs, right? There's a constant opportunity impact tied to market. There's a lot of things that come into play. And I know that given unlimited time, every engineering team would probably never release a feature because, there's never that point of perfect, right? Perfect is the enemy of done. But, I think that one of the coolest things that I see in watching many organizations go on this journey is that the visibility piece, right? Like I'm in the business of making it really easy to see what's going on. And you mentioned over and over and over again, it's about predictability. There is no magic to Spot, right? That there is best practices. I look at the spot market just like the stock market, and those simple principles, right? Don't get overinvested. You don't overinvest in a stock. You don't put all your eggs in that basket because you have to mitigate risk. Same thing. Don't get overinvested in a specific instant type or instance family within an availability zone because you're at risk for mass termination events, right? So once you start to realize, diversification is key, just like my financial planner tells me, and then you start to look at average instance lifetime, right? So your workloads are predominantly ephemeral. That being said, every organization has something that's a little bit on the longer running side, and there's an optimal time to get out, right? There's an optimal time in the spot market to say, all right, it's time to yield and move on to a different instance family, or maybe the market's changed and I see something more stable for a better discount. But I think that making Spot best practices easy and just being perfectly clear, again, nobody can predict when a computer is going to go away. I know that there are people out there who would like to say that they have a crystal ball. There is no crystal ball, right? That this is all statistics, mathematics, probability, and increasingly AI making decisions based on patterns. So really being able to say, if we do all these things right, if we just follow the patterns that for instance the AWS Spot team outlines for best results, what we get is predictability, and we measure predictability in terms of cost per CPU per hour. We measure predictability in termination rates. We measure predictability in many ways, but short circuiting, just getting to a tool that can show you, okay, this is actually how I'm doing with Spot in my environment. Really empowers teams to have somewhere to go with that, right? Like you don't want to build all that stuff yourself. Nobody has time to. Well done.
Yeah.
I actually, peeked around, and I'm like, effective savings rates. I mean, my gosh, I think you're an example of a class of Spot power user that are getting, effectively 70% sometimes, some days, 70% discount across your EKS. And that seems to have been done with a good balance, a balanced approach. We have some commitments. We invested in the workloads that are going to do well with Spot. It's impact based. Don't throw your databases out there on day zero.
Yeah, I mean, we're still using a hybrid configuration. Like we definitely have some on-demand instances covered by savings plans or reservations that we use for the more stateful workloads. But we just kind of keep in the cluster just in case. It's like, like going completely all in on Spot could be, really dangerous. And so, yeah, we want to keep the lights on, the batteries loaded. So
Absolutely.
There's always going to be a little bit of diversification, but that's your mutual funds. That's your your ETFs, like in your investment portfolio.
Right. And, I think that what happens out there is that people have or organizations have the fear factor to the point that they overinvest in commitments, right? And that's a sticky spot. I don't know if you've been there. I've been burned.
Oh, yeah.
The first RI purchase I ever made, leading an engineering organization, gosh, I think we were making our first commitment purchases, or first figured out that we had to do something to optimize for price somewhere in maybe like 2016. I don't remember. It might have been 2015 was the first time I decided that, or we decided as an organization that we had to do a little bit better job of planning for capacity. And that RI commitment burned me because we realized 3 weeks later that there was a bit of an architectural miss. And once we got it out into production, we realized we had to move to an entirely different instance family. And of course, at that time, my way of thinking was, we spend a lot of money on Amazon. I'm just going to reach out to my account executive and say, whoops. But
how did that go for you?
It didn't go well. It was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
Me.
No, I've definitely been in the place before where I have to look at my shame reservation and find something to schedule onto it. Maybe it's not the most exciting workload. Maybe it's not mission critical, but man, do I need to eat that compute? So that's where you're going. So
we've all been in that situation. But I still come across the organization that, regardless of how great the need is to tune or optimize, and really buy yourself the space to optimize for efficiency, right? That commitment level, even with savings plans, which are much more flexible, builds the natural floor. You cannot go below that floor. So if you have designs to to optimize for efficiency, it may be a wasted effort if you continue year after year after year just to raise your commitment level because you feel like there's not the time or that the tools are not suitable for your engineering organization. I don't know. I guess I'm having a yes you can moment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But so you have done a tremendous job leading an organization of scale to use a blend of tools and really focus on price efficiency. I've also seen you make some wins with waste efficiency, right? And so again, perfect world, we start from the bottom up. So now that you've got such an impact on the price side, what does the future look like with container level optimization, excess capacity on your nodes? I know you made some quick wins with some of these Karpenter features.
Yeah. So we're able to get pretty good utilization when we wherever we're deploying Karpenter right now. It's like getting sometimes 60, 70, 80% utilization, which that's incredible. Like to and really we over provision most of our clusters just to, again, it's our baby, it's production, it's our customers. Like, so we have some over provisioners that just halt and catch fire, just waiting for things to scale, and they get descheduled the pods get descheduled real fast if actual demand happens. But like we're very aware of what that is and what we're over provisioning. It's like we can predict that margin because we know what we're going to do, and so we don't see a lot of waste. One of my favorite things to do is just watch Karpenter consolidate things and watch it go and do bin packing. I saw this great tool last year at reInvent called EKS Node Viewer that the EKS team put out, and it's a fun little text UI thing, and it just shows you a list of all of your nodes, and it kind of has a little progress bar across that shows how utilized they are, and you can just watch it like bring in a new node and fill it all up and watch the other ones drain, and it's just so magical to see like how efficient it is. And then now we have all this great data coming out of our cluster. It's like you just you can take those metrics and really start to monitor that waste. Like just having that data available to do something with is really awesome, because there's some further optimizations you can make, like you said, down to the container level, or at the namespace level, or whatever level kind of makes sense for you to be slicing the pie. And so yeah, I think that there's like waste isn't really as much of a problem anymore. It doesn't mean you get it for free. You still got to do some optimization. You still got to do some layers of monitoring. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, the math might say like use this little bit of memory. But if it's a Java application, I always get to give it a little bit more. It's just but it really helps to see like what those underutilizations are and know that they're being like, again, setting that policy saying like consolidate while underutilized. Like if we have like if we can get a better idea of what those underutilizations are by exporting those metrics and looking through that data, building dashboards like in Datadog or your favorite data visualization tool, like you're really able to start fine tuning that machine. Like as we've started to tighten up some of our pod and container level utilization metrics, like we've really gotten that waste margin down further and further and further.
Right.
Kind of in the process of rolling that against different clusters. Every workload is going to be different, right? And our test environment and what that uses is very different than what our production environment that uses, and so we see applications behaving very differently from lower to higher environments, just because it's the nature of the game. But I've been very impressed with how little waste we have, and how easy it is to spot when we have it, that there's something. It's like when you see it, then you know that something's wrong. That's great. But like this kind of the harmonious nature of Karpenter, like with other features like lifecycle termination. I forgot what I called it before, but like just knowing that node's going to go away eventually. Like, if we know that our average workload it takes a certain amount of time, even if we bring in a big giant spot instance and it doesn't get utilized, it's like we know that it's going to life cycle out after a certain amount of time.
You have a point there. And, you bring up a good point. So first of all, visibility is key, right? It's the key to the kingdom when it comes to optimizing for efficiency. And just once you can see it, and it's very hard to measure. It's very hard to measure. Datadog, love it. We use it heavily. It's a great product, but it's not for that. It's not an efficiency tool. And so number one, having those efficiency tools. And then I really like what you said about focusing on the consolidation policies, right? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of newer consolidation policies, but I really put it in the category of pod placement, right? At the end of the day, I think when organizations are configuring requests and they're configuring limits, the thought is really around, I'd have a pod of this kind and, it has these resource requirements and, I really want to, I start packing for the outside edge case, but that's not the workload pattern that most pods go through. I mean, you may have some API containers that have some sort of steady state workloads or something larger in batch data processing, but really putting diversity into taking that diversity strategy and asking yourself, what is the likelihood that every one of these pods, now that I have a diverse bin placement strategy, is going to peak at the same time, right? Because that's what that excess capacity is for, right? For my production environment, fine, 30%. That is an okay number because excess capacity is not bad. It's overhead, right? So I think it's, getting a picture of what does good look like, because, 30%, well, it sounds like I could save 30% of my bill if I ran everything in the red zone 100% of the times. That's when you're going to get into problems. So I think that what you've done to focus on pod placement, having a flexible fleet of resources and getting that sort of diversification in workloads. So I'm not, everything is not same container, same node, doing the same thing at the same time, statistically works out to the best outcome. But the thing that's really key about that is that it is going to enable you to actually see the results of your container right sizing exercises. Because if your pod placement is bad and you have these weird node pools where somebody said, I want to isolate this thing because I have a fear factor of, how much resources it's going to require because I don't pay attention or I don't have the tools to help me to understand my workload patterns. And so if you have like this mix of strange pod placement and it leads to artificial overhead, artificial excess capacity in your node strategy. If you attack there, then when you attack the lower level, you're going to see the results. And that's, I guess I see organizations go through these right sizing exercises and they're like, gee golly, my requests are down. And, if they're down in perfect increments of node sizes, then you might save a node. But in aggregate, I have questions if they're really going to see the results that they're expecting. Well done. Josh, I feel like we could go on like this for forever.
Oh yeah.
and often do, but I know that we've both got a lot of work to get done before we head out and our heads down at KubeCon next week. So why don't you take us out with a little preview of what you're excited about? What are some of the announcements or conversations that you're looking forward to next week at KubeCon?
Yeah, so I'm excited for a lot of the co-located conferences. Like I'm gonna go check out Argo for sure. I'm a big Argo fan, and so I'm interested to see what the latest and greatest is around Argo and what could be done there. And it's topical to our own panel, but like there's a lot of talk with AI out there, and like I don't think these AI workloads are going anywhere anytime soon. I'm just excited, like with the explosion that we've seen over the last year in the industry over these LLMs. Like we've got to embrace it, and we've got to figure out how to work with it and scale with it. And obviously, we talk a lot about Spot and things like that today, and you don't usually think about training data and running it on Spot. And I'm really interested to see like what tools can I pick up from my war chest to start figuring out how I can optimize training ML models on Spot instances and in a reliable and productive way. And I think the tools are there. I think the groundwork
they are,
but I want to see where the innovation's coming from, what the ideas are. And like any conference, I'm most excited to see the people and to talk to people and to get to know everyone that I can. So if you see me at KubeCon, please flag me down. I will. I'm going to try to make myself as available as possible to talk to as many people as I can. So that's where I've truly learned everything along the way. And so I'm just excited for the attendees, and I'm going to try to, grab a speaker's ear if I can, if I see a talk that I like, or make myself available after our talk so we can network and understand one another. Some of the things I've picked up over the years, like I said, have come from conferences like this, and I'm just excited to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, there's a real sense of community at CNCF events, and I think that's what I'm most excited about as well. I've been at reInvent year after year after year, but it's been a few years since I've been back to KubeCon, and so I'm excited to be out in force and really back to our panel. I feel like we've gathered people that just come from all different organizations, and really it's about how can we work together as a community to drive this technology forward and really do amazing things in the face of the way that AI is changing everything for all of us that work in technology, changing the game for developers, changing the game for DevOps, and every other discipline in the house, to be honest with you. So it's an exciting year to be there. All right, Josh. Well, thanks for taking the time to join me today. I'll see you, I guess, when you coming in next Tuesday.
I get in Monday night. Yeah, well, actually Monday afternoon. So I might go explore the city a little bit that evening. But I'll definitely see you.
Cool. Yeah, I'll see you out there next week.
All right.
Catch you later. All right.
See ya.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to nCast. We hope you enjoyed the episode. As you can tell, we love to geek out on all things cloud optimization. If you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram, or just shoot us an email at ncast@nops.io. If you'd like to learn more about the continuing innovation over at nOps, or about our free FinOps platform where you never pay anything unless you save money, check us out over at www.nops.io. Until next time.